The sun beat down like a drill sergeant's glare on Fort Bragg's parade ground, the air thick with the scent of fresh-cut grass and diesel fumes from idling Humvees. Private First Class Jake Harlan, all of 19 years old, gripped the fire hose with knuckles white as the foam spewing from its nozzle. His squad leader had barked the order, "Soak the newbies, Harlan. Break 'em in." The rookies, fresh-faced, wide-eyed, still smelling of civilian life, scattered like startled quail, laughing and cursing as the cold water slapped their uniforms. Jake's lips curled into a grin. This was his moment, his chance to prove he wasn't just another grunt from nowhere, Ohio. Then he saw her. Standing apart from the pack, ramrod straight, her white navy dress uniform gleaming like a beacon under the North Carolina sun. Gold stripes glinted on her sleeves, a peaked cap shadowed her face, and a braid of dark hair snaked down her back. Jake didn't think. He aimed. He squeezed. The jet of water hit her square in the chest, drenching her from cap to polished shoes in a heartbeat. The parade ground froze. The rookies stopped running. The squad leader's jaw dropped. The woman didn't flinch. Water streamed down her face, but her eyes, sharp, storm gray, and unyielding, locked onto Jake's. "Private," she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade, "do you know who I am?" Jake's grin vanished. The hose slipped in his sweaty hands, still spraying, now soaking his own boots. I'm sorry, ma'am. Thought you were a rookie." Her lips twitched, not a smile, but something colder. "Rookie," she repeated, tasting the word. "I'm Admiral Elena Voss. And you just assaulted the base commander." The words hit Jake harder than the recoil of an M4. Admiral. 4 stars. The woman who could end his career with a signature. The parade ground spun. Somewhere, a sergeant whispered, "Oh, shit. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to her." Jake stood rooted to the grass, the hose now limp in his grip, water pooling around his boots like a guilty confession. The rookies, sensing blood in the water, formed a loose semicircle, their laughter replaced by the kind of silence that precedes a court-martial. Sergeant First Class Ramirez, Jake's squad leader, sprinted over, his face a shade of red that clashed with his camouflage. "Harlan, you idiot," he hissed, yanking the hose from Jake's hands and shutting off the valve. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Jake's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His eyes darted to Admiral Voss, who was calmly wringing out her cap, her movements precise, almost surgical. The gold eagle on her collar caught the sunlight, mocking him. "Sergeant," Voss said, her voice steady but laced with an edge that could cut steel, "escort this private to my office. Now." Ramirez saluted so fast his hand nearly blurred. "Yes, ma'am." He grabbed Jake's arm, dragging him across the field like a sack of potatoes. Jake's mind raced. He'd been at Fort Bragg for 6 months, long enough to know the base was a joint operation, Army, Navy, Air Force, even a few Marines lurking in the shadows. But an admiral? Here. Running the whole show. It didn't add up. Admirals belonged on aircraft carriers, not in the middle of an army training ground. As they marched toward the headquarters building, a sleek, modern structure that looked out of place among the squat brick barracks, Jake stole a glance back. Voss was already walking away, her soaked uniform clinging to her frame, but her stride was unbroken, her head high. She didn't look like a victim. She looked like a predator who'd just marked her prey. The headquarters building was a fortress of glass and steel, its air-conditioned interior a shock after the humid parade ground. Ramirez shoved Jake into a chair outside Voss's office, a mahogany-paneled room that screamed authority. "Sit," Ramirez growled. "And pray she's in a forgiving mood." Jake's hands trembled in his lap. He'd grown up in a small town, the kind where the biggest trouble was sneaking beers behind the high school gym. The army was supposed to be his ticket out, his chance to make his parents proud. Now he'd hosed down a 4-star admiral. His career wasn't just over, it was a smoldering crater. The door opened, and Voss stepped out, her uniform replaced by a crisp new one, her hair still damp but pulled into a tight bun. She didn't look at Jake. "Sergeant, you're dismissed." Ramirez saluted and vanished, leaving Jake alone with the Admiral. Voss leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her eyes dissecting him. "Name," she said. "Private First Class Jake Harlan, ma'am," he stammered. "Age?" 19, ma'am. "From?" "Buckeye, Ohio, ma'am." She nodded, as if filing the information away. "Stand up, Private Harlan." Jake scrambled to his feet, his knees knocking. Voss circled him, her boots clicking on the tile floor. "You thought I was a rookie," she said, not a question. "Yes, ma'am. I didn't see the stars. I swear, I didn't know." She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something sharp, like cedar and salt. "Do you know what I was doing on that parade ground, Private?" Jake shook his head. "I was inspecting the new joint training program." "My program?" "The one I designed to make sure soldiers like you don't drown in incompetence when you're deployed with sailors or airmen. And you, Private, just made a mockery of it." Jake's stomach churned. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll take whatever punishment." Voss raised a hand, silencing him. "Punishment? Oh, you'll get that. But first, you're going to learn something." She stepped back, her expression unreadable. "Report to the training yard at 0500 tomorrow. You're mine now." The next morning, Jake was up before the bugle, his body aching from a sleepless night. The training yard was a different beast at dawn, cold, quiet, the grass still wet with dew. Voss was already there, dressed in navy fatigues, a stopwatch in one hand and a clipboard in the other. No stars, no dress whites, just a woman who looked like she could outrun half the base. "Harlan," she barked, "drop and give me 50. Jake hit the dirt, his push-ups sloppy under her scrutiny. She didn't yell, didn't curse, just watched, her eyes missing nothing. When he finished, gasping, she handed him a shovel. "Dig a trench. 6 feet long, 2 feet deep. Now." Jake dug, the North Carolina clay fighting him every inch. Hours passed, the sun climbing, sweat mixing with dirt on his face. Voss didn't help, didn't speak, just observed. By noon, Jake's hands were blistered, his back screaming. He expected her to send him packing, to recommend a discharge. Instead, she tossed him a canteen. "Drink," she said. "You're no good to me dehydrated." Jake gulped the water, his eyes on her. "Why are you doing this, ma'am? Why not just end me?" Voss's lips curved, the closest thing to a smile he'd seen. "Because, Private, you've got fire. Stupid, reckless fire, but fire. And I don't waste potential." She turned away, but not before he caught a flicker of something in her eyes, pain, maybe, or memory. "Finish the trench. Then we start again." Over the next weeks, Jake became Voss's shadow. She dragged him through every training exercise on the base, Army obstacle courses, Navy damage control drills, Air Force survival simulations. She made him run until his lungs burned, climb until his fingers bled, and study until his eyes crossed. She wasn't cruel, but she was relentless, pushing him past limits he didn't know he had. And she talked. Not about herself, not at first, but about the base, the program, the stakes. Fort Bragg was a testing ground for a new era of joint operations, she explained, a place where branches learn to work as one. "The world's changing, Harlan," she said one night, as they cleaned rifles in a dimly lit armory. "Enemies don't care if you're Army or Navy. They just want you dead. My job is to make sure you're not." Jake nodded, his hands steady now, the rifle disassembling with practiced ease. He wanted to ask about her, how a woman barely in her 30s had climbed to 4-star admiral, why she seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 battles in her eyes, but he didn't dare. Then came the first twist. During a night exercise, Jake's squad was ambushed in a mock urban assault. Paint rounds flew, and Jake took a hit to the chest, killing him. As he lay in the dirt, playing dead, he overheard Voss arguing with a colonel in the observation tower. "He's not ready, Elena," the colonel said. "Harlan's a liability." Voss's voice was ice. "He's my project, Tom. Back off." Jake's heart pounded. Project? Liability? What the hell was going on? The truth came in pieces. Voss wasn't just the base commander, she was a legend, a prodigy who'd made admiral at 34, the youngest in Navy history. She'd commanded carriers in the Pacific, led strikes in the Middle East, and survived a helicopter crash that killed half her crew. But there was a shadow over her. Rumors swirled, a failed mission, a cover-up, a demotion disguised as a transfer to Fort Bragg. Jake pieced it together from overheard conversations, stolen glances at files left on her desk. Voss was here to prove herself, to show the Pentagon she could still lead. And Jake? He was her gamble, her way to demonstrate that even a screw-up like him could be forged into something more. The realization hit him during a grueling ruck march, Voss matching him step for step, her pack as heavy as his. "Why me?" he gasped, his legs screaming. She didn't break stride. "Because you remind me of someone," she said. "Someone who didn't make it." The words hung between them, heavy as the packs on their backs. Jake didn't ask who. He didn't need to. He saw it in her eyes every time she pushed him harder, every time she refused to let him quit. The second twist came during a joint exercise with a Navy SEAL team. Jake, now leaner, sharper, was leading a squad through a simulated hostage rescue. Voss watched from the command center, her face unreadable. The mission went sideways, fake explosives, real chaos. Jake's squad was pinned down, and he made a call, risky but bold, flanking the enemy through a drainage ditch. It worked. The hostages were saved, the enemy neutralized. The SEALs clapped him on the back, grinning. Voss didn't. She pulled him aside after, her voice low. "You took a chance today, Harlan. A big one." "Yes, ma'am," he said, bracing for a lecture. Instead, she handed him a folder. "Read this. Then meet me at the airfield at 2200. The folder contained orders, his orders. He was being fast-tracked to officer candidate school, with Voss's personal recommendation. Jake's hands shook as he read. OCS. A commission. A future he'd never dreamed of. But there was a catch. The orders were contingent on one final test, a classified mission, off the books, led by Voss herself. What kind of mission, he asked that night, standing on the tarmac, a Black Hawk idling behind her. Voss's face was lit by the chopper's running lights, her eyes fierce. "The kind that doesn't exist," she said. "A rogue cell on the base, stealing weapons, selling them to God knows who. I need someone I trust to help me stop it. Someone no one suspects." Jake swallowed. "Why me?" She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Because you're not just a soldier anymore, Jake. You're my soldier." The mission was a blur of shadows and adrenaline. Jake and Voss, backed by a small team of hand-picked operatives, moved through the base at midnight, tracking a trail of missing munitions. They found the culprits in an abandoned warehouse, 3 men, including a lieutenant Jake recognized from the officers' mess. The confrontation was swift, brutal. Jake took a knife to the arm, Voss a graze to the shoulder, but they won. The traitors were cuffed, the weapons recovered. In the aftermath, as medics patched them up, Voss leaned against a crate, her face pale but triumphant. "You did good, Harlan," she said. Jake, his arm in a sling, managed a grin. "So did you, ma'am. Guess I'm not the only one who takes risks." She laughed, a real laugh, the first he'd heard from her. Guess not. The final twist came days later, at a ceremony on the parade ground, the same one where Jake had hosed her down. The base was packed, soldiers from every branch standing at attention. Voss, in full dress whites, took the podium. She spoke of duty, of unity, of second chances. Then she called Jake forward. "Private First Class Jake Harlan," she said, her voice carrying across the field, "for extraordinary courage and initiative, I'm proud to award you the Navy and Marine Corps Medal." The crowd erupted. Jake, stunned, felt the weight of the medal as she pinned it to his chest. But she wasn't done. "And," she continued, "effective immediately, Private Harlan is promoted to second lieutenant, with orders to officer candidate school." The cheers were deafening. Jake's eyes met Voss's, and for the first time, he saw pride in them. Not just for him, but for herself. She'd done it. She'd proven she could still lead, still win. Months later, Jake stood on the same parade ground, now in officer's stripes, watching a new batch of rookies scatter under a fire hose. He smiled, remembering. Voss was gone, reassigned to a carrier group in the Pacific, her redemption complete. But she'd left him a letter, tucked into his orders. "You're not my soldier anymore, Jake," it read. "You're your own. Make me proud." He looked at the rookies, at the base stretching out under the Carolina sun, and felt the weight of her words. He'd hosed down an admiral. He'd been broken and rebuilt. And now, he was ready to lead. The hose sprayed, the rookies laughed, and Jake Harlan, once a nobody from Ohio, stood tall, knowing he'd earned his place. Viewers, from which part of the country are you watching this video? Drop it in the comments below.